I've just rattled off a list to Stevie saying that these are the words and the things that you're not allowed to bring up in our podcast episode. And she said, I feel like, why did I even bother coming? So I think without further ado, this is one of my good friends, Stevie,
You know what? I'm
and
your best friend.
best friend, Stevie. And she is a gutter mouth. And she's hilarious and she's an amazing friend. She's also a multi-site yoga and fitness studio owner
I
and
am.
also a neurospicy ADHD girly. And and
Undiagnosed. We just have diagnosed ourselves, haven't we?
100%.
Yeah.
No, I think the diagnosis tool would probably blow up and catch on fire if
It'd
it
need to have a little sleep, wouldn't it?
would need to have a rest afterwards.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
But one of the things that Stevie and I often say after having deep and meaningful conversations is people would have loved to listen to that.
They definitely would have. They definitely would, but they also like what type of screening would we have to have on it?
Oh, there'd
It
be lots
has
of
to be a rating.
100%. It's like when you're scrolling through Instagram and it says, "Are you sure you want to watch this video?" It's one of
And
those.
we're like, yeah.
So I think the one thing that I really hate about podcast episodes is one, they're too long, and two is that you go too far into the backstory of people. I don't care where you were born. I don't care how Jay and Stevie met. I just think let's cut straight to the chase and maybe in one or two sentences, maximum a paragraph. Maybe tell the audience who the hell is Stevie Hucker and maybe a little bit about your business fellow studios, and then I think that's all we really need, don't you?
And then we'll just end it.
And then we'll end it. No, then we'll get into how we navigate our brains and business.
Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, I am a fitness instructor and I opened my first business 3.5 years ago. It has been a completely wild ride. I knew nothing about business. And now the last 6 months, I was working on opening a second space because the first one was going so well and I just wanted to share the love. So we opened our second space 6 weeks ago. We live on the sunny coast. It is a beautiful spot to live. I'm a mum of 2 and a wife. And yeah, we're just hustling. Well, I'm just hustling here with the business. And yeah, is that what you wanted to know?
That sounds wonderful. Yep,
You're
that
like,
sounds
moving on.
wonderful. I'll look at the analytics of the podcast, and half the listeners would have dropped off about 60 seconds ago, but that's okay. That's fine. But let's get balls deep into it straight away. I think you and I we have a lot in common. That's why we're such good friends. But I think we have some more deeper personal things in common as well in terms of I suppose how our brains work and how we definitely identify as being very creative, where we're not scared of the hustle, we're not scared of hard work. However, it doesn't necessarily come easily to us. It's not like, we've had conversations. We're not the smartest people in the room, but we know how to do people
Yes.
really well. And I think that I think even one of those traits that you have when you have ADHD is that you have a completely irrational belief in your ability of new things even before you've tried it. You can look at someone wiring up a house and you're like, I could do that.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Like someone tiling their kitchen, you're like, I'm a tiler.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
am.
And of course, it's a double-edged sword that, to back yourself 100%, but it also, on the flip side of every yin, there's a yang. And it's like, I think we've had discussions before about days where we're completely paralyzed and all you can do is sit on the couch and scroll Instagram.
Definitely. And I think that that's just comes with that sense of overwhelm. Our brains are like, it's like, I can't remember where I read it, but I read a phrase or a quote about ADHD brains, and it's like, we are thinking about 17 more things than the average brain. And so I find personally that those days that I'm like paralyzed on the couch, it's like I have to actually say to my husband, I'm not lazy and I'm not useless. My body's not tired. I'm just so mentally and emotionally fatigued that I can't move. Like I can't have one more thought.
Mm.
And it's been a real journey for him to like learn how I work and not think, what the fuck is she doing? You know, because I can be either really on and I'm like dominating the world, killing it, and then I'm off.
But you can't plan for that.
No, there's no planning.
Yeah. And I think it's also, there's no planning, but you can't switch it on or off. You can't get yourself in or out of it. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I really admire about Marie is that rain, hail, or shine, if she's got a diary full of stuff, she'll just get it done. Whereas I'm like, no, thank you. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing that.
No, I'm the same, or I might open my diary and just go, oh, no, I can't. That's not for me today. Like even the idea of it, like my anxiety peaks. Whereas other days I look at it and I'm like, we're gonna dominate this day. Let's get it done.
It's interesting. Where is it? Oh, it's on the floor. Hang on.
I'm not even joking. The back of your hair. Oh, is this one you've prepared earlier?
This is what I've prepared earlier. Stop it. I'm dressed from the waist up. Now listen, product placement, but I think the fact that we called our planners in flow was a lot of education that I did around time management, because honestly, about 10 years of trial and error of trying to be structured and disciplined and organized and time blocking and outsourcing and delegating, just doing absolutely everything that I could to be a structured, organized person, and just that constant feeling of failure around not being like other people. Why can other people do it and I can't? I'm so good at everything else. Why can't I do that? I think a lot of what we put into the inflow model isn't about being structured and organized. It's about finding your rhythm and being in your flow and being really flexible with that. And I often, when I'd go off on a tangent, I'd had nothing to return back to as a reference point where I can pick up where I left off.
Yeah.
So I was constantly stopping and starting and just being completely inefficient. So I think it's about being in your flow, and that'll be different every day.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the beauty of living life with people like us. It is like you never know what you're going to get on that day. And I know some people can take it or they can leave it. I think for me, I seem to surround myself with these structured humans over the course of my life. Not you, obviously, but I was surrounded by those types of humans. And because of the way that I had that sense of failure as well, and almost a bit embarrassed. And I feel like a lot of people that surrounded me or that were close to me, they'd say things like, oh, you know what Stevie's like. And it used to cut me quite deep, because I'd be like, well, what am I like? Because I really feel like for many years, I didn't really know. I wasn't like them, but I probably hadn't yet discovered or understood exactly how I ticked and the way that I ticked. And now that I have a more in-depth knowledge of the way my brain is, I'm actually really grateful for it. And I can articulate to people around me, you know, this is how I'm doing things today, and it's not going to be the way that you want it, but this is how I'm rolling, because I can't do it the other way. Like I physically cannot do it.
Yeah, it just takes such an immense amount of effort.
Oh God,
Some
no,
days.
sleep after it.
Yeah, 100%. But I think I'm sure we would have had conversations about this somewhere down the line, but like I can almost guarantee, and I could be wrong, but in primary school you were the class clown.
Yep.
You know, the teachers liked you, but they didn't like that you couldn't do the work.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, you would probably compare yourself to the other students and think that you were dumb. Like, it's the same story for everyone that has ADHD or something like that, with challenges with their learning. They and maybe even, and I don't know, but maybe even the fact that you're not a bookwork academic type person, you do lean into relationships and friendships and connection because
Yeah.
that's kind of what you're trading on. That's all you've got.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely. I think for me, school, people talk about fond memories of school, and I think I have zero. I
Mm,
have zero fond memories of school. I was a really anxious kid being in a classroom. I was really anxious as a teenager. And even to my adult life that I obviously carried on from school, I think I've shared this with you before. I used to get really nervous about being the dumbest in the room.
mm,
And it's so silly. And now I do think it's so silly because I know what I bring to the table, and it definitely isn't book smart and
mm,
whatever, but it's just so much more. It's being able to read people's energies and make those deep connections. And I know that in my life, the connections I've made with people, often those people have never made those types of deep connections with anyone. You
mm,
know, I think that you and I are really great at breaking down people's barriers. Um, and yeah, just leaving those people, and they always feel so energized and so good. That's what Tim always says to me, my husband. Everybody always wants to be your best friend,
mm,
because they feel good when they leave.
mm,
But now I know, when I've been to your events and I've spoken at your events, or I think I shared with you when I did your event last time, I was really nervous because it was just going to be like filling out forms all day. Remember
mm.
that?
Yeah.
And you're like, now listen, this seminar is your worst nightmare. You're going to have to fill forms out every day. And I was so anxious, but I just took some deep breaths, and we did get it done. And I actually did better than what I thought I was going to, because filling it out was actually, I suppose, the topic of building my brand and my business was in these forms. So I was really interested in it. So, you
Mm.
know,
But
um,
also, it's because I know you didn't want to come, and I have to reassure you that, well, this planning process I built, so
yes,
it works for me. So if it works for me, it must work for you.
definitely.
Um, yeah, but I think a few times I'd look across and you'd finished your work and you're helping other people.
Yeah, yeah, because I got it. I got how it was like, how it was being displayed to me. I wasn't confused. I know I've shared with you that filling out any form of form just piques my anxiety and sends me into a tiz.
Mm,
Yeah, one of my employees, when we go to Bali to run retreats, when you fly in and you land and you get the forms and you've got to fill them out. He's done it with me a few times now, and he just gets the form. I don't even say anything. He just takes it off me, and he knows all my details now because he knows that that is just not my jam. And I always make a mistake because I'm
mm,
like that,
mm.
flustered. She cannot fill out a form.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think at some point in a podcast episode, you've got to flip it from trauma dumping and making the listener at the end of it feel depressed and heavy to something that's actually helpful. And I think I think 50%, maybe more. I think 80% of it is that um, people should feel heard and seen
Yeah,
because I believe we're successful. On paper, we're successful.
yeah.
And you can do it with what I sometimes have seen as a compromised brain, but it really is a superpower. So I
Mm,
think before we move on to more helpful stuff, I think the difference between having a high IQ, so academically intelligent, towards compared to having a high EQ, so emotional intelligence. And I think that even helps me choose the school that my kids go to because they have an emotional intelligence program.
Yeah.
And I think, look, I've definitely come across a lot of creatives that have made a mess of themselves, but uh, equally those that have had an enter score of 98 or
Oh,
that are in
absolutely.
medicine or that are lawyers. I think it's given me a broad snapshot of there's a lot of dumb, smart people out there.
Absolutely. Life dumb. Should
Yeah,
I,
life's dumb.
should
Absolutely.
I call
100%.
them?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah,
I think it's how's it helpful in business, do you think? Like when you think about the emotional intelligence, because you trade on that a lot, as do I. How's
yeah.
that made business easier for you?
I think with me, definitely like when we opened our business, I even remember my dad saying to me, "Oh, Stevie, you're not a business person." And I thought, true, that's true. But I did back myself because I knew that I was good with people. I'd been a hairdresser for, 10 or 12 years, whatever it was, probably longer, I'm old. Um, and building relationships was something I knew that I was very good at. And I think that having our type of brain, that creative brain, and you have to be that creative when you have a small business, I think, and it was just me. It wasn't a team of people that launched. So you almost have to be able to have that quick thought process. You have to be able to think on the spot. If something comes up and there's like this big fire or whatever, you have to be able to pivot. And I do find because I mean, I'm married to somebody that probably has quite a high IQ and a low EQ. So I do he says to me, I couldn't do what you do. Because if there was a drama or something that we needed to pivot, it would take him 2.5 days to work out what that pivot was, and it would take me 2.5 seconds. I'd say, all right, we're doing this. So I think that our types of brains can think on the fly. Not much rocks us either. Nothing rattles us too much other than a form that you have to fill out. But, it's sort of like we get what we need to get done and we do it really well. And it's always aesthetic, it's always beautiful, but then you might find that we're in a hole for 2 days after that, And my husband says, you hustle, 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 hustle for 6 weeks. I'm here, and then I drop and I'm out for 4 days.
Yeah.
And
And often that's when you and I are having conversations about wishing that we could just pay to be
yep,
put in a coma for a bit.
yeah, or just a little light anesthetic.
Yeah, just a general.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
general, like a really deep, gorgeous general sleep.
The ultimate rest is to have no brain waves and not to have to beat or breathe for yourself.
It is, but we don't ever not. Sometimes I look over at my husband on the couch on a Sunday, and I say to him, "What are you thinking about?" And he says, "Nothing." And I think, I fucking believe you. You're not. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing there. And he says, "Why? What are you thinking about?" And I'm like, 780 things.
Yeah.
There's never that switch off with my brain, and I'm sure you're the same. Um, and then that is where we often need that real decompress. I always say I'm an extrovert until I'm not.
Mm. There was a Australian comedian that did a TED talk about being shy loud.
Yes.
So you are an introvert,
Yeah.
and you have all the qualities of an introvert, but externally looking in, you come across as an extrovert. I think anyone's ever seen a photo of Stevie and I on a wild night out on Instagram or whatever, you better know that that was 8 p.m. and we were back at we were in bed watching YouTube shorts at 9 o'clock. That's how it works. Because you go hard, you go fast, and then you go home. But I think it's uh, it's having an air of confidence to back yourself, and that I think the challenge is how the world of business views people that are structured and organized and appear to have it all together, and they don't forget things. Like, that's held on in such a high regard. However, we were talking earlier on the phone that I feel like there's a shift, but it's just the start of the shift where um, people like us are starting to be seen as a superpower to have in your business or as a business owner.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
and it might even be, anyone that's watched an interview with Elon Musk, he's absolutely off the charts autistic.
Yeah.
Like, he shouldn't be a multi-billionaire because of his neurodiversity, but he's got a belief in himself and his brand and his product, and that's how he got to where he is. So I think a lot of it is, and I've just come out of probably a 4 or 5 week patch where I had a low opinion of myself because
Yeah.
things weren't going my way. And it took until I had to have a conversation with myself of, no, you've actually got this, and people are lucky to have you, and the business wouldn't be where it is without you. But it goes against the narrative of what's out there. I suppose even like how your father said, you're not a businesswoman. That can completely stop you in your tracks and stop you going any further, can't it? Like statements
no,
like that.
it does to me, because when somebody says to me, you can't do that, I think, oh, I'm going to.
Watch me. Yeah.
I'm the worst for that. I was like that as a teenager.
Yeah. But not everyone's like that. You can see how that would stump some people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, that particular comment didn't deter me at all. I feel like I do now have a strong sense of belief in myself. However, there, of course, like you were saying, you had a bit of a lull for 5 weeks and you had a low opinion of yourself. I think that we do, a part of us means that we do feel things very deeply. And I think we do need to acknowledge that, like how someone else might feel a situation or something that's happened to them. I know for me, I will feel that 10 times deeper than the average person. So if things aren't going well with my business or right, or we're having a quiet patch or anything like that, I feel the stress and emotion of that so deeply.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also it's like, I know that when we hosted our Bali retreat and you came in, facilitated some meditation and yoga for our crew, when I said, well, what's your plan? And you said, I'm coming over at 10 a.m. to your villa. I said, and what are you going to take them through? And you're like, I'll meet them first and I'll feel how they're at and their energy. Yeah. Whereas I think, that's a superpower within itself. And I know, like, I create agendas and PowerPoint presentations when I'm delivering keynotes to appease other people and to keep the team happy and to make the audience feel safe. But you bet your bottom dollar, I'm not referring back to that fucking PowerPoint once.
No.
Because I'm going to pick up on the energy of the room and I'm going to look out and I'm going to sense whether they're feeling it or not. And if they're feeling it, I'm going to keep going with what I'm talking about. And if it gets dull, I'm going to bring the lunch break earlier forward. And then I'm going to look at all of my team at the back of the room and the blood's drawn out of their face. But that's the difference. But it's also, I showed up to an event that I mainly organised about 12 months ago. I didn't confirm the booking. The room wasn't set up. Just so happened that it was available. I said, our guests are coming in an hour. And they said, oh, we didn't know you were coming. Whoops. So as much as they're superpowers, you need to know your failings. You need to know your shortcomings.
And definitely within your business. Like, I actually think that being aware of what your superpowers are and what your flaws are going to propel you forward in your business. Now that we have grown and we've got 2 spaces, our team has grown, and I really am leaning on them to bring something that I cannot. And I know my manager, he will often say, Don't contact her for that. She just needs that space to create. And it's true. Like, it sounds so ridiculous. Like, I sound like, I'm bloody a queen. But I offload things now to him because I need that brain space to be able to create what we're doing for the next 6 months. And that is always based on knowing my members well. And I can honestly say to you that I know every single one of them. Not one of our members would walk in and think, oh, I've never spoken to her. I've had a personal conversation with every single one of them. And then I go home and then I need a nap.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think one of the many conversations that we've had is about when you do have ADHD or ADHD traits, you're on the spectrum, you avoid doing tasks that don't give you a hit of dopamine, like
Boring.
Boring
tasks.
Oh, boring. I thought you said a pouring, as in like it was pouring dopamine all over you. But yeah, the same thing.
I would love a shower.
Just a shower in dopamine, like a hip bath. Just a bit of a horse wash in dopamine. It'd be lovely. but shut up. But and I think that's one of the things when you do have ADHD is that you're less prone to want to follow through with menial tasks that don't give you a hit of dopamine. So it's not just your inability to be able to maintain focus, to fill out a form or do general admin or data entry. It actually, you have a physical response to not being able to stay still, whether it's conscious and you go, oh, thank God the oven chime has gone off. I can get out of doing this task. Thank God go home. But you unconsciously find yourself out in the garden and you think, how did I get here? So but I think that's the other thing, because your brain's constantly searching for dopamine. If you're not getting it from the work that you're doing, you find it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that there's kind of socially okay ways of finding dopamine. Coffee.
Oh, I love a cuppa.
You love a cuppa, yep. And isn't it funny that people with ADHD, when they're an adult, like they're our age, mid-30s, pushing 40, they're onto short black, aren't they?
Yes.
Because they thought that's the quickest way to get a hit.
Yep. I love a short black. I have that every morning.
Yeah. But they don't waste their time with long coffees or milk or whatever, like, no thank you. But it's also caffeine, because it gives you a hit of dopamine. It's alcohol, because for me, that switches my brain off. It works in a different way. Yeah. But I'm also a happy drunk as well. So it does switch that on and it calms my brain. But it can also be other interesting addictions. Doom scrolling, TikTok. Yeah, I think I do that more than you, a lot more than you. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're in a hole with TikTok, there's just no coming out for you until you're ready. And I'm not allowed to speak.
No. As I think it is a strategy for me to escape when I'm overwhelmed.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But it is also those quick, funny little hits that you get. But it's not healthy. It is an escape strategy.
I like to offline shop.
But again, that's an addiction, isn't it?
It's a dopamine. Oh, I love it. I love that Apple Pay.
Yeah. Because you can go bang, bang on the side of your phone.
It's so quick.
It's funny, isn't it? You can see how that can become a problem. I know that I've drank so much coffee, I've almost had a panic attack. I'm serious. I'm serious. I feel like in between having diarrhea, I'm thinking I can't breathe.
Shit yourself while having a panic attack.
It's bad. It's bad. But I think when you go back to those times and you look at, well, where was I at in my head at that time when I was doing that and self-sabotaging? You're either completely out of tune with yourself, like you're just go, 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 or you're in a bad headspace. You've got anxiety, you're depressed,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of topping yourself up with these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating, isn't it?
Just give yourself those quick little hits to get you through the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not wine at 11 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think always towards the end of our episodes, we always do a bit of a segment called Hot and Not. So what's really hot? And I think it helps people like us have a little bit of structure of how to close off an episode of it kind of bring it home with some things that work for us or things that we think are really good. And I think for me, what's hot? I think what's hot is not just paying for professional development. Most of the people that are listening to this are either clients or they follow me because I'm a coach, and they know that, of course, we talk a lot about professional development, but when it comes to personal development and looking after yourself, it's still not as socially acceptable as, if someone said to you, I've paid $5,000 to do a business course, they go, well done, compared to I've paid $5,000 to go on a retreat or have counselling or do sound healing. They'd think, how indulgent.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah. We definitely need to normalize the therapy.
Yeah, 100%.
We need to normalize that everyone should be seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like we have all of these specialist or specialty appointments for everything else, every other aspect in our life. And it's like, why aren't we normalizing that it's so needed? And that it doesn't mean that you've got these great big problems because you're seeing a therapist. It's like, hey, it's going to help yourself regulate. You're going to get to know yourself so much better. And that on flow effect into your life and what you do is amazing. You don't have to go to a therapist because there's a problem.
Yeah,
like you're looking at
absolutely.
your brain and finding things out. I think, like, even I know obviously you're not a therapist, Jay, but even sometimes when we have conversations, I know you're like, that's news to me.
I'm an unofficial therapist.
You are. But when
Imagine if I could prescribe. Imagine if I could prescribe.
No, you'd be out cold all the time.
Sorry.
Conversations that are really deep, and you get in the trenches with me, and we talk about things probably that you wouldn't say to anyone else. Like, you say them out loud and you think, ooh. But when we have conversations like that, and I can say those things out loud, because they're the things you do say to your therapist because they're paid not to tell anyone. You learn so much about yourself and the way that you tick. And sometimes you might be like, oh, do you just want me to be your cheerleader, or would you like me to give you some feedback? And I say, I might have both. It is really, really important, I think, to dig a little bit deeper and to discover the way that you work and the way that you tick. And if you are watching this because you do have a business, it is going to be the most vital thing in your business is knowing yourself well.
So I think there's two things there, which is be vulnerable and talk about it, normalize it. And then number two is get help, get assistance, find something that works for you. Go on a journey of whether it's ice baths, whether it's meditation, yoga, gym, find a healthy addiction, a healthy habit that you can really immerse yourself in. Yeah.
Absolutely. And something that you can do every week that just, becomes a part of your day or a part of your week. And you usually start off with one thing that's going to serve, your inner self. And then it starts to accumulate. You start adding, really beautiful things into your life that are really going to serve you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's finding your people where you can be vulnerable. I know that the only reason we're recording this episode is I actually already recorded it and then didn't have the confidence to post it.
Yeah.
And then I told Stevie that, and she said, "Not up in here.
No.
No,
Hit
we'll do it
post
together."
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. And I think it's even I said to Stevie not long ago on the phone, I know I need to lean into being more vulnerable here because I'm drinking more than I care to admit again,
Yeah.
and that's just to deal with stress. It helps me switch off. But I said to Stevie, even saying that out loud makes you own it more and being vulnerable. But
Yeah.
you got to choose your audience to be able to share that with.
But people will connect with you on that.
And if they don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you've got to cross that threshold to have that thinking.
You do.
Yeah, you've got to because there's times in your life where you do care what people think more than you should, and then you'll have a talk to yourself, or someone will have a talk to you, and you go, no, if they don't like it, they can not watch. I don't care.
I'm very much like that, but I think that I'm very much like that since having my business, but probably because I've grown personally within my business. Like we get lots of things on Instagram or people talking or whatever, and I just often say, look away. It's I'm certainly not going to be for everyone, and it would exhaust me trying to be for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what's hot. We went off on a tangent, shock horror. What's not hot? What do you need to avoid? And I kind of sometimes feel like it's just the opposite of what we've just said. But what springs to mind? We haven't prepped for this, of course. So what's not hot? I think guilt. I talk about guilt a lot with my clients, and look, there's lots of negative emotions and negative states of mind, but I find that guilt doesn't get spoken about enough.
Yeah.
And how completely arresting and unhelpful guilt is.
I cannot believe you've said this word, because I hope my dad never listens to this, FYI.
Well, why the fuck would your dad, why would Ken be following your growth coaches?
And FYI, I love my father. We are like BFFs. But just because you said this word guilt, last night I rolled into his house after an afternoon on the wine with my girlfriends, and I was sitting next to him on the couch, and I was like, give me a cuddle. You know how I'm like that. And something come up, and we were talking about our childhood, and like my childhood, my parents were separated, nothing too dramatic, but it wasn't like a tight family unit that we had. And something come up, and Dad said, haven't got one bit of guilt about your childhood. I said, not one. I said, not one thing comes to mind about bringing us up that you've got guilt for, that you think, oh, I should have done that different. He said, not one. I said, I had guilt yesterday about what I ate for breakfast. Like, you must And I just found that, so I actually started laughing. He said, what? And I said, no, nothing. And then I come home and I really was thinking about it. And I was thinking about how this generation, and I know we're saying how we need to, normalize things, but really we have, and we are growing, because that generation, oh God, they're so unaware of self. They don't dig very deep.
Look, I think I've facilitated personal development with people that are in their 60s and 70s in the room, and it is very different. Like, you can say, all right, guys, we're doing personal development with 20-year-olds, and they're saying, I hate myself, like within 30 seconds. Or, they trauma dump like you wouldn't believe. I don't think there's right or wrong. It's just different.
That's what I mean. It just is so different. And I started laughing because my dad and I are so similar in so many ways. He definitely has ADHD, and I've tried to diagnose him. But just when he said that, I was like, that is just such a generational separation here, where it's like we really want to know ourselves well and be the best that we can be. And he's like, I'm very good.
But I wish I was more like that.
I know. And he's like, oh, no guilt. And I'm like, what is time? And he's like, no.
But I think I often talk about good guilt and bad guilt.
Of course.
Good guilt's your moral compass. When you do wrong by someone, you should feel guilty. But there's definitely a higher prevalence of irrational guilt, things that you shouldn't feel guilty about. And I think definitely in our generation and younger, there's a lot of guilt around a lot of things that just it doesn't serve people. Like guilt is to redirect your attention to doing better, but you're not doing wrong. You're not doing wrong by other people. You shouldn't feel guilty. So that's irrational guilt. But and probably I'm hyper aware of guilt because it's probably played a big role in how I see myself as a business owner and as a leader. Because as you said, you surround yourself with people that are the opposite to you because they kind of pick up where you fall down. But I've surrounded myself in my business with people that are different than me, but then I'm the odd one out and it can be lonely. And you feel guilty for being the way that you are. But then you have a chat to yourself and you go, I'm fucking amazing, you know, and focus on the things that you're brilliant at, not feel guilty for the things that you're shit at. Doesn't make sense.
And I think that you end up finding, yes, you do surround yourself with those types of people, but generally, if you dug a little deeper, they'd wish they were more like you. I believe that to be true. I know I had a conversation with my website design girl last week, and we were employing another girl to do our social media, and she's beautiful. And my website design girl said, now just letting you know that in one day, Stevie's going to contact you on 17 different platforms, and it's up to you to put all those messages in order in the way that they've come in the day and how she wants things done. And she just started laughing because obviously she said it very light, and she was like, but it's true. I said, no, it is. Because I might send her an email, I might send her a DM on Instagram, because that's how my mind is. Or I might be on Instagram and think, I'll text her, I'm on here. And she's like, you know, and she's wonderful. And she just puts it all together. She says it's like a fun little Stevie puzzle for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's, it's often not that black and white. Like, I think that there's nothing wrong with someone challenging you on that and saying, hey, would it be possible if you message me on one platform? Because you can, I think I've seen some people that they're like, this is the way that I am and I back myself 100%. And I think, well, you're an asshole for that, because you still need to be flexible. You can't just throw your hands up and say, this is me, go away. I think, but you can take the feedback on board and you can choose to do something with it, or you can reject it.
I had a lol, and then I was laughing with her, and then I thought, no, I'm just going to email you, doll. So then it's all through email. I even honestly notice sometimes that I do that, because if I just have a thought, it's out, and it depends where I am at that time, if I'm on my computer, if I'm on my phone, whatever. So yes, I am making a conscious effort just to email her instead of 17 other platforms.
Right, let's see how that goes, hey?
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun.
It has.
It's been fun.
It.
I feel like I need to pay $149 for this. I feel lighter. I feel lighter. Yep. How do you feel?
Lighter after our chats.
Good. Awesome.
I'm going to say I love you on here.
And make sure that you like and subscribe and leave us a review if you've liked this episode, and we'll catch you in the next one.